Power supplies are some of the most misunderstood and underrated pieces of gear in any ham shack. So let's look at what a power supply is and why we use them. Just about every electronic device needs a power supply. Electronic devices run on direct current or DC, while the electrical power to our homes, offices, schools, and stores is alternating current or AC. Power supplies take the AC power and transforms it to DC power to run our electronic devices. Wall warts charge our phones and tablets. Built-in power supplies bring our computers and televisions to life. Massive power supplies run our aircraft carriers and a lot of our factories. However, we're going to explore power supplies that run your shack. There are a lot of quality power supplies on the market, and there are a few that can only be described as mighty fine junk. Well, I don't do product endorsements. I can't help but do product placements. After all, it would be hard to hide what I use in my shack. I prefer to have separate supplies for each of my rigs. That's more of a personal quirk. I simply don't like things having power applied when I'm not using them. Now, if you want a single power supply to run your whole shack, be sure to make it big enough to do the job. That said, I use Astron power supplies because that's what I started with and that's what I've always gravitated toward. The first thing you'll want to do is figure out how much power you're going to need. Then determine the amount of power supply that you'll need to provide that amount of power you'll need. Got it? Okay. Then you want to determine what type of power supply would meet your needs in your shack. Finally, you need to figure out your budget and buy accordingly. Power supplies are rated by their maximum current output, so you want to find out what the maximum current your rig will pull. Now you can go to your owner's manual, look on the specifications page or the manufacturer's website for your rig, and it'll give you that information. For example, my Kenwood TS890, according to the specs, will pull 22.5 amps of current during transmit. So, you're thinking a power supply rated at 25 amps should be good enough, right? Well, maybe, but probably not. If you look on the Astron website, I've put the address down in the description, again, not an endorsement, but a useful source of information, you'll find a switching power supply rated at 25 amps. Again, this should be enough to run my 22.5 amp radio, right? But is it really? Digging deeper into the specs shows that the 25 amp rating is the ICS, or Intermittent Communication Service rating. That's Astron's term for max short-term power, and this is marketing at its finest. It should be taken with a grain of salt. The actual continuous power rating is 20 amps, and it's this rating you should pay attention to. When determining what power rating I want in a power supply, I generally increase my rig's max current draw by 50%. This puts my search value at 33.75 amps. Now there's several reasons why I do this. First, any electronic circuit running it close to its rating will eventually be strained and fail. They prefer to run a little bit cooler. Second, the ratings all around radio and power supply are estimates based on an optimum build and design. I'm simply erring on the side of caution. All that said, I selected the 50 amp version of the Astron switching power supply, and that best suited my needs. By the way, the 25 amp power supply was more than sufficient to run my Kenwood TM-D710G, that's the VHF-UHF rig, which has a max pull of about 13 amps. Now, so far I've been discussing switching power supplies. Your choice will be between these and linear power supplies. Linear power supplies are larger, heavier, and costlier. They're based around a large transformer that steps down your AC house power to a power level appropriate for your rig. They run that secondary, still AC current through a rectifier circuit that changes it to DC. And there's other filters and stuff like that in there. Linear power supplies are old, but they're proven technology. Switching power supplies have been around since the early 1990s and had a lot of problems in the first few years, such as noise on the output, which your rig would then put out over the air. These problems have, for the most part, been rectified. You see what I did there? But the originals are still available on the aftermarket, and some manufacturers haven't fixed their problems, preferring to keep their prices low and profits high while putting your signal and your shack at risk. When switching power supplies came onto the market, I advised the ham radio classes I was teaching that they should be avoided and recommended linear supplies. I had many students come back to me and tell me after the fact that they should have listened to me. Now, obviously, my views have changed. Today, if you buy from a quality manufacturer and avoid the mighty fine junk, a switching power supply could be a good fit for your shack. A good power supply will probably outlast your radio. In the past, I had a 35 amp linear power supply that lasted me over 25 years, and I ended up giving it away. I probably went through 5 different HF rigs in that time. I didn't have to buy a new supply for any of them. Now, you want to compare prices from multiple online ham radio retailers. Make sure you include the shipping cost, as those can vary between the stores. If you have a local brick and mortar store, go to them and get advice from the salespeople there. And also, never, ever, ever forget to get advice from your local hams and clubs. These are the guys who've lived it. If you've looked at the Astron website, you may have noticed many of the supplies are adjustable and many of them have meters. Now, I consider these unnecessary bells and whistles. Adjustable power supplies are useful if you're in a lab where you might need different voltages, different currents. To state the obvious, we're not in a lab. You want a power supply with set voltage and then set current. They are also a potential hazard, as you might bump the adjustment and then your radio will be over or under what it needs. Meters. They're interesting and pretty, but your power supply probably will be put in an out-of-the-way location where you really can't see them, can't see the meters. Even if you have your power supply displayed in your shack, you will probably never glance at the meters, especially once the charm wears off. These make your supply cost more at what I feel is an unreasonable trade-off for any functional gain. My advice, skip the bells and whistles, but as always, your mileage may vary. It's your shack. Now that's it for this video. I hope it's been informative and helps you find the right power supply for you. If it has been, or if you just enjoyed the presentation, please give me a like by clicking on that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, please subscribe. I certainly would appreciate that. And if you'd like to be notified when more videos are posted, ring the bell. Thanks for checking out my channel and by dropping by my shack for a chat. 73 for now. Elmer Tom, ND3N, out. See ya.